Thank you, Alicia. Appreciate it, and welcome everyone to today's webinar. I'm hoping you get a lot out of information of what we have to present today. I am very proud to be here to present our presenters today. First, we have Charlene Vickers. Her pronouns are she, her, and hers. She's the Director of Supplier Diversity and Inclusion with Johnson & Johnson. We also have Paul Satel. His pronouns are he, him, and his. He is the NA Procurement Consumer Category Lead for Johnson & Johnson. And then from our BE side of the house, we have Aurelio de Mendoza, also pronounced he, him, and his, the Senior Vice President of American Meetings Incorporated. He is also a certified LGBT BE. So, go ahead.
No, go ahead,
John. So we'll jump right into this. Just a few minutes of a little panel discussions with our presenters today. And I'm gonna start with Charlene and Paul. And either one of you can answer or both can answer this question. You can pick or choose. What are the most important items that a company should be prepared with in a matchmaker meeting? And what kind of information are you looking for in talking to a supplier?
Great, thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so first of all, I apologize for not being on camera. I have a chronic issue, and just today my camera conked out on me again on my laptop, so I have to call the help desk again, so apologize for that. But in terms of, secondly, first of all, let me thank you all for inviting us to be here. It's always great to connect with our amazing diverse businesses, and so we're excited to be able to support you in this way, and looking forward to the upcoming matchmaking event. So thank you for that. I think what I would say in terms of what we look for, and again, we talk about the matchmaking sessions, right? Really kind of the speed dating for, getting to know companies. We're talking about a very short period of time. And so I think that, within that period of time, as a person that represents the buyers, what I'm really trying to do a quick assessment on is whether or not your organization, your company will be a fit, right, for J&J, from both a capability perspective as well as, just from a general business standpoint. So I want to understand, pretty quickly, obviously, a little bit about your history, the background of the company, from how many years you've been in business, how many employees, if you have employees, how many employees you have, because I want to have a feel for your scalability, right? Your ability to scale, because that's critical to J&J. I want to understand quickly what your footprint is. If you have either locations in multiple sites, or you have business relationships, with other companies that you leverage as a part of your network in other sites, want to be able to understand that. And then, like I said, understand, really what are your core capabilities? What are you bringing to the table? And I think the single most thing that I think is important, and I'd love to hear, is really what differentiates your company from others. And what I would ask is that you be really real with yourself about that, because a lot of times, we'll hear, some things that may not necessarily be, really be differentiators. So what are those things that are unique that set you apart? And I always find it impressive if companies are able to really speak to, the J&J portfolio specifically, and how your company or organization can, bring the value-added service or products that would fit well into, specifically into our corporate company. So that would be my input on that question.
And I'm Paul. Yeah, yep. So I'll probably add to that. Obviously, I see a lot of supplier presentations. I believe it's 15 minutes, kind of this connection meeting with our company and other companies. One of the things that I think what typically happens is everyone kind of knows their business and passionate about your business, but a lot of times you may go off track, focusing on one thing and not really giving yourself enough time to really address the capabilities that you really do have. And it's great to show us the capabilities up front but most likely there's going to be certain areas that you're better at. And so I would probably say, don't come in acting like you're the expert in everything. Address what Charlene said is, at least tell us what you can do, but also provide us kind of the area that you focus, and also a case. So again, you only have 15 minutes. And so I would recommend that you practice in front of the mirror, not just for us, for every company that you interact with, to be very concise and get directly to the point and what value that you bring on here. And one of the things at Johnson & Johnson we encourage even our employees to do is use the STAR technique. What's your situation or task? What's the actions that you have done? And what was the results from that, good, bad, or indifferent? And that'll keep you probably on track to keep within that 15-minute timeline.
Yep, great point. And may I throw one other quick thing in, Alicia? Yes. In terms of what not to do. And I'm going to share this transparently because it happens a lot for some reason in matchmaking type sessions, is where, supplier approach you and kind of the first thing out of their mouth is, I've been trying to connect with J&J for years. I tried to reach this person and nobody gets back to me, and I'm sure you great, amazing NGLCC suppliers won't do that, but I just thought I'd throw that in to say, just in case there's one or two, don't do that, because that is, that's kind of frankly an immediate turn off. So thought I'd throw that in too.
Right. No, thank you for following up with that. And just a question on the back end. Somebody asked, how long should the introduction be in terms of time during the 15 minutes?
That's a great question. I mean, I don't know if I can, Paul may have something off. I mean, I don't know if I can put any time around it. I think it's just more around, making sure, what the scope of your introduction is, just making sure that everything that you hit, like, I'm sure you're going to be prepared with 4 or 5 things that you want to make sure you deliver during that time, that everything that you hit during that time frame is really, is really focused, is what I would say.
Yeah, and I'll probably say from a storytelling, we tend as human beings to be storytellers. This isn't the time to be very in-depth about stories. So I would probably say be very concise up front about how you started. Don't let it take away from delivering what your capabilities and the results that you've had. And that's where we want to emphasize, yes, we're human beings and we want to form a connection with the people that we're presenting to. But that's something that's critically important, delivering what you really want to deliver.
Awesome. No, thank you for that. So next, from a supplier side, Aurelio, will you please just tell us about your experiences with NGLCC's matchmaking program, and have you had any success with it? You're on mute.
Thank you. My apologies.
Oh,
thanks, Alicia. It's great to see everyone. I wish we were doing this in person, but virtually is fantastic. Yeah, at American meetings, we've had great success with MatchMakers. We've been participating in MatchMakers since the beginning. We've been certified since 2014. And every time we have an opportunity, we take it to get in front of our corporate partners. And the success that we've had is long-term success. And that's one thing that I want to make sure that I'm pointing out to everybody. These relationships that you build, even though you meet with someone for 15 minutes, they can last a very long time. And so that's the first thing that I try to do is try to create some kind of relationship with the person that I'm meeting with. We're always just trying to identify the opportunities that might be coming down the road. In our industry, in our field, in the meetings and events industry, the opportunities come typically in the form of an RFP, and many times they're separated by 3 or 4 years. So we try to identify the person who's managing meeting spend and then just keep the relationship going. And so our success comes sometimes later. I've gotten, I've been reached out by folks a year and a half after I met with them, letting us know, okay, the RFP is coming, right? But I've stayed in contact with them. So for us, it's a really long play. Sometimes we get lucky and we meet with someone and they're getting ready to start the RFP, and that's just the timing thing. But in terms of success, how we measure success is how many times we're invited to an RFP. Whether we land the business or not, that's on us and our team to present ourselves, you know, in the best light possible. And sometimes we get the business and sometimes we don't. And it might not be that we weren't great, we just weren't what they were looking for. So for matchmakers, what we try to measure is, do we get opportunities to present ourselves later on? If we do, matchmakers is a huge success. And it's been a very successful strategy for us at AMI.
Thank you, Ariel. That's great information, and a lot of information that you just gave is what I like to tell our suppliers when they're trying to come on board or asking what can I do to get in front of people with the chamber. So great information. I have another question for Charlene and Paul, but before I get to that, there is a question. Paul, you mentioned an acronym of STAR, and someone's asked, can you say what that stands for again?
Right. So it's situation or task. So for example, if you had a situation or even a task, then the A represents action. What are the action steps that I did based on that situation or task? And R is the results. What were the results from that? I find even in interviews that's the technique we use, and people who kind of follow that tend to be very tight and buttoned up. And that's really what you want to do, especially if you only have that 15-minute opportunity. You want to show, even if you're a one-person show from a supplier perspective, you want to show that you're truly buttoned up in delivering your message.
Great, thank you. And I get kind of caveats into my question is, what preparation does a supplier need to go through to be contract ready?
Okay. So yeah, I'll go ahead and start with that one. So in terms of being contract ready, I think one is, and again, so, and I assume this person is asking about, you know, being ready to seal the deal, right? So once, you know, Aurelio talked about, you know, the number of relationships that he's been able to move to that place. So being in a position to be ready to seal the deal. So I think, you know, first of all, is again, you know, making sure that your organization is in a position from both a staffing perspective, like I said, you know, scalability perspective, and then of course capabilities to be able to support the business that you're going after, and really, you know, and really execute and perform well for J&J. I think, you know, it would be behoove the company, well, the organization, to really take the time to understand J&J as an organization, the culture and so forth, as well as the requirements. Because we have, you know, you guys, right, work with a lot of large multinationals. We have a lot of requirements, right? So really understanding kind of, if you're on the supply chain side of the organization, you know, those requirements associated with that. On the commercial side, what our legal requirements are and expectations. Of course, if you're moving along the contract path, you'll get an opportunity to, you know, review our, you know, our standard contracts and language, and really making sure that you vet that out well, along with your legal support. I think would be very important. You know, it's part of learning J&J and the culture. I think you definitely want to also, as a part of that, understand, you know, who the key players are, you know, who the stakeholders are, who the decision makers are. And then lastly, I'll say in that area of business is, you know, certainly, and again, this kind of goes along with requirements too, just understanding the process, you know, and how things flow in terms of execution of, you know, projects and work. And again, if you're on the manufacturing side, you know, with J&J, I think is really important, because I do think it's important for suppliers to, you know, we need you to be fit for us, but also as a customer, right? You want us to be, you know, a good fit for you. So really, I would encourage you to really do that vetting on our organization as well, to make sure you're comfortable with moving forward.
Yeah, and to build off, to build off of what Charlene just mentioned is, I can give you an example. For example, if you're an agency, and if Johnson & Johnson is looking for an end-to-end agency, and you say, hey, I'm only good at 2 out of the 5 different areas that J&J is looking for, in order for you to really be prepared, it's okay to say that I have freelancers or I have third party that will build that. So you have to really prepare beforehand to say, am I going to be ready to go if I get a yes, you've been awarded an RFP, to be up and ready to go. So really it's about proving that you have infrastructure already planned out. So don't get bogged down to say, I'm only one person, J&J will never consider me, or any other companies. It's really how you come across again in showing that you build out a plan in order to support the RFP.
No, that's great information. And Aurelio, I see you shaking your head. Would you like to expand on that?
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad that you said that, Paul, because in the meeting and events industry, we source a lot. We have third-party suppliers that are part of the American Meetings Network. We built our network because we rely on their support to help produce fantastic global meetings. And so that's part of our pitch, is that we've built out this network of suppliers, programmers, project managers all over the world, audiovisual suppliers, and that's actually a differentiator for AMI, as opposed to going into it feeling like it's a negative. It's actually a positive that we've built out this vetted network of suppliers. So always try to think about what you're selling yourself at in a positive light, because us smaller organizations actually have the benefit of being more nimble, and we can actually adjust. And large organizations, I've learned, are looking for that. They're looking for innovation, and they're looking for companies that can help them drive change. And many times they have difficulty driving the change themselves because they're just so big. So that's what I wanted to add to Paul's statement.
Yep. And to add a little bit more on that is really, think of yourself as sometimes project managers. You are really facilitating a lot of this type of activity. And so, for example, one of our global printers does exactly that. They have a bunch of printers that are part of a network, and they basically bid out the work. Instead of us taking the time and hiring people to do that, that's what that company does. So, and they are one of the largest in the world. But that's how they build the business. So don't get discouraged to say that you're just a small little organization and no one will actually look at you. And especially, you're going to probably have a lot less overhead, and you're probably going to be priced lower than these global companies. Sometimes you think they're giving us the best price. It's not always necessary. If they have thousands of people working for them and they have extra buildings and offices, that adds cost to them, and it doesn't make them as competitive as you think sometimes.
Nice.
And not to belabor the point, but I think it's such a great point. And I'll just say very quickly, one of the things that I actually have encouraged some small businesses to do is to be very deliberate about connecting with other companies that have either complementary or supplementary capability, because I actually believe that's going to be that is vital to being able to survive and compete against a lot of the large companies. So to the points that both Aurelio and Paul made, I think to really, be deliberate about that. It helps you with expanding your footprint. It helps you with expanding your capability. But also, as you show up to the J&Js of the world, it says, hey, we come with a complement of services. We've got business continuity baked in. So if something happens in our business, we can continue to move because we've got these partners in place. I think that does go a really long way in terms of how you present to companies as well as, and advance your business.
Well, thank you, Charlene, and thank you, Paul and Aurelio, for expanding on that, your answers on that question. And to follow up a little bit on that, Aurelio, what recommendations or tips would you give to other LGBTs as our virtual Matchmaker premiere is on October 1st? What advice would you give the suppliers that are looking to participate?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that I see it is it's threefold, right? What you're doing before the meeting, what happens during the meeting, and then what you do after the meeting. So before the meeting, prepare, right? So you're going to want to research the company. I think Charlene mentioned that, what do they do? Is there any interesting news that has come out, recently, maybe some mergers or some important media stories? You need to understand the organization that you're meeting with. The next thing I do is I research the individual that I'm scheduled to meet with. I always go to their LinkedIn. I always send them a little note, letting them know that I'm looking forward to the meeting. Check to see if you have any common interests, or, maybe you went to the same university, or you have, similar contacts. It's, people like to do business with people that they like, and you want them leaving remembering you. So they may not be remember you because of your capability statement, but they might remember that you went to the same school or something like that. So that's always important. And then also, you might not be meeting with the supplier diversity person at the organization. So introduce yourself to the supplier diversity contact at that company. Their job, and they're happy to help us. So they might be able to provide you with some advice or maybe some strategy on what they're looking for, because the supplier diversity folks are sitting in on these procurement meetings and they know what's happening on the back end. So it's my main role to really get tight with those folks. And then, of course, prepare your capability statement. Charlene mentioned, that's important. The important data points, right? Locations, number of employees, like that's all the basic stuff. But focus on your core competencies and then your differentiators is exactly what Charlene said. So that's like all the pre-stuff. During the meeting, I think we shared a little bit about how long do you spend getting to know the person, how long, as long as it takes, right? That's the human connection portion of it. So if it takes 2 or 3 minutes, it's okay, because they're going to remember you. So understand their role. What is their goal there at the meeting, right? I always try to make sure that I spend a little bit of time on that. And then many times the category lead for your product or service is not who you're meeting with there, right? So just keep it high level. Your core products, talk about maybe highlight a similar client that you've worked with so that they can see that you can work with a similar client. If you have time, maybe a short little case study, or just have that in your back pocket, and then ask them some questions. They may not know the answers, but they can tell that you know your business and that you understand, the types of questions that need to be asked. Really, the goal before you leave that meeting is to get the name and the contact person that runs the category that you're in, right? Many times it doesn't happen. Sometimes they promise that they're going to get it to you because they don't want to give that name, or they might not know. The organization might be that big that they have to go and do some research. It's beautiful when they're the person. That's happened a couple of times, and they're like, that's my category. I manage meetings and events. And I'm like, yes. And I give them a big hug, we'll have to do a virtual hug this time. But so that's really the goal of the meeting for me. And then finally, the follow-up. You're going to want to do a brief but quick after the event email, thanking them, and then, reminding them. Always write down the name of the person they mentioned, reminding them to do an intro. And you're going to want to be a little bit persistent until they connect you with that person. But ask them what a good cadence is. Is it, can I reach out to you next week? Are you traveling? Just keep it. It's important to ask them what's appropriate, because procurement professionals are slammed. They're super, super busy. And so you don't want to be a pest, but you also need to, keep yourself top of mind. Sometimes it's good to just say, hey, putting this at the top of your inbox, type of email. The next thing that's super important, and I've learned this, not the hard way, but I've just learned this over years, register in their portal. They all have a portal, and it's the way that they manage their suppliers. And so it does take time. At AMI, we've created a system for that because I can't manage them all myself. So there's somebody at the company that helps me with the portal registrations, especially register on the ones with the people that you just met, right? But it's always good to try to go through the whole NGLCC list and get on there. It just takes time. And then finally, follow up periodically. And it's important, send them updates on your products. You might have only been able to capture a little bit of what you do. So you might have some really cool new thing. Don't worry about send it to them, because it keeps you top of mind. But I think that's really the key. Think about what you're going to do before, plan your meeting during the meeting, and make sure they remember you. So connections will do that, and then follow up.
So that's amazing. And all of those are good points, but I really like how you said, ask how they like to be contacted, or, how often to communicate, because each organization is different.
Yeah.
Some have portals and some do not. So yes, just ask and, keep that information for the next time you communicate. And with that, I want to turn it over to Sean for another question. You're on mute.
Oh, you're on mute, Sean.
You think by now I know how to do this. Sorry about that. And I was just saying, thank you, Alicia. That actually leads into the next question that we have for our colleagues at Johnson & Johnson. Is that what is your internal selection system? Is it a database or a portal that you go through to select your suppliers?
Charlie, would you mute?
I am not now. So much like Aurelio said, we actually have a couple of tools that we use that we invite suppliers to load profiles into. Honestly, this is an area, and I'm sure many of my colleagues in the industry that agree that it is a challenging space for us in terms of that intake, because like you have many folks you're connecting with, there are many suppliers, but we do have a couple of tools that we use to intake suppliers and get their profile. So one of them is Tealbook, and we have, all of our existing suppliers loaded, a lot of prospective suppliers, and we often direct the categories there to identify suppliers to meet capability needs. So once that kind of connection is made either through that, and quite frankly, in a lot of cases, when we get reached out from categories, we do come back to organizations like NGLCC. If we have kind of a category, one of our procurement categories, say looking for a specific, say a set of capabilities, we might come back to NGLCC and say, hey, can you give us a list of suppliers that, can perform these capabilities and also provide those to the categories. So that's another really good source for us. And I think once we make those connections and the categories, do some vetting, then it's really just, about going through the process Aurelio mentioned earlier, getting onto an RFP. But I want to be clear, there's a lot of vetting that takes place, prior to actually the invitation to the RFP, right? Because we want to make sure the organization is a fit, and then what's on RFP is, competing for that business with other companies and just moving through their whole criteria, selection process, the criteria that they put in place around that selection process to ultimately make a decision. Is that getting at the spirit of that question? Does that answer that question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yes, it does.
Yeah, so Aurelio, I think you hit a key point. And at most companies or corporations, people come and go out of the positions, okay? So it's really a timing. You may luck out and there's an RFI or RFP happening, but in most cases, it's probably not. Sometimes you'll hear a lot, oh, we just did that, it won't be another couple of years. And what I recommend people to do is be tenacious, okay? But not being aggravating. So like Aurelio said, is it on a quarterly basis that I'll send an email and say, hey, just keeping in touch with you? Are you still handling this category? Because a lot of times that person's still within the company. They just moved to different category or different position within the company or a different sector. They can always provide you the name of the person that has picked up that responsibility. So again, I think of it as almost networking. It's a long-term networking, and the opportunity may not happen for 2 years or even 3 years, but that's part of your business, that you're constantly selling yourself and waiting for that opportunity to happen. So again, I would recommend that even possibly looking on LinkedIn and searching for procurement in Johnson & Johnson and seeing if there's a person in that particular category and sending them an email through LinkedIn. And they may be very receptive to entertaining and having a call with you just to have that initial conversation. So don't, give up, because I think Charlene said that earlier, is that, you have to keep on thinking about how I grow my business long term, not in the short term.
Thank you guys for that information. Alicia? Muted.
Oh, yeah. I know, I'm just talking. So one of the last questions that we have for you, and we're going to start with Charlene. What does a supplier need to keep in mind when taking on a contract with the Johnson & Johnson?
That we are very challenging to work with. No, I think it's, no, we really are, but you guys already know that. No, you know, I think it's really just kind of along a lot of the same themes and that we've talked about. So again, understanding the culture of J&J, and I think the more that you, because every company has their own personality, right? So I think the more that you learn the culture, and again, understanding, J&J in particular is, you know, actually a very relationship-based company. So that's kind of one thing that's unique about it, I think, compared to other companies. And so it really, you know, impacts how we you know, interact across the culture. So I think it's learning that. I think it's, you know, probably goes without saying, but, you know, we never, you know, compromise on quality. We have very, or you know, service, right, in delivery for, you know, for our end customers, you know, as well as internal customers. So you'll see, you know, as you work with us, it's a very high level of focus on, you know, delivery of quality products and services. I would say, you know, at the same time, I think, you know, you'll find that, you know, within our culture that we do, you know, tend to build very strong, good, solid relationships with suppliers. And, you know, we're just a company that cares about people, and that extends to our supplier partners. And so, you know, so being able to kind of, you know, build those relationships and even leverage those for your business is, you know, very much a possibility, because that's really how we engage with, you know, at J&J. You know, if you know, take the time to really read through the J&J Credo as you're learning the business, it does tell you a lot about the companies and how we, you know, we always, you know, customers are first. That's our hospital customers, consumers, and patients, and then, you know, our employees, community, and then, you know, stockholders are, you know, deliberately the last part of our, the fourth paragraph, if you will, of our credo, with the assumption being that if we do all the other three things right, you know, it'll pay dividends, and we've demonstrated over time that it does. So I guess those are a few things I would say. Paul, I'm sure you have some things to add.
So I probably, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of the supplier. I have owned business in my prior life before big corporation life, and what I probably recommend is you don't have to give away the farm in order sometimes to secure the business. And I know when you're a small supplier, any type of business, you're going, oh, it's Johnson & Johnson, or it's Procter & Gamble, or it's whomever it may be. They say, I just want to get in the door, and I'll low price my product to them. And I'll probably recommend that as part of the contract negotiations from pricing, Johnson & Johnson, we're not in the business to make the supplier make $0, okay? We want to make sure, based on our credo, that you earn a fair profit, okay? And so that's where I kind of recommend, as you're working with any of the manufacturers, you should probably understand and benchmark what's the going rate out in the marketplace. And if I want to discount that, at least know from a P&L perspective where you're landing. Because guess what? We don't want to award you and then all of a sudden you have financial problems or cash flow issues and you can't really fulfill the statement of work that we've presented to you. We'd rather you be successful in that. And of course, we're emphasizing, the reason why Charlene and I are spending time with you today is we understand diverse suppliers have a disadvantage, and we want to make sure we're providing that opportunity for you to succeed. So again, transparency sometimes is better in talking to the category leads from procurement, rather than, again, risking your reputation and also risking our business, because we don't want that to happen either.
Oh, that is all great advice. I like the whole transparency. Exactly. You don't want to set yourself up for failure in a way. You know, be honest with what you can really do. So no, thank you all for that. Are there any, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague. I believe that there are some questions that came into the Q&A. Did you want to ask them now, or do you want to hold off till the end?
We can address some now, and I can keep it going for everyone. I'm TJ Chernick, Director of NGLC CNY, and also your friendly neighborhood Q&A moderator. I'm trying to get to everybody. You see me leaning over my keyboard. I would love to say, thank you, J&J and Aurelia, for doing this. I've been also working on MatchMakers for the past 5 years, and I want to tell everybody here, including our partners, that when we look great, when all of you are gaining success, when suppliers are getting those contracts and we're making our partners happy, it's all a win-win. We have your best interest in mind, 360. So I would love to address some questions, and I promise we'll try to get to all of them. But first, how is important for J&J, how important is it that your supplier match, that a supplier match your global footprint? If the supplier is more regional, is that also a possible good fit?
Great question. Great question. So thank you for asking that. So the way that we termed it in procurement in the past is, of course, we like, suppliers that do have a global footprint with a regional reach, but we also understand that, in a lot of cases that, you're just not going to have kind of those large scale global suppliers. So I would say a couple of things. One, absolutely. I think regional, local suppliers, can fit, and they do, really across our organization. I think it depends on, J&J has a footprint of our program in 17 countries around the world. So I would say, I think it, obviously depends on the market, depends on the category and so forth. But there certainly are, in probably most of our suppliers are regional, if not local, as it relates to our current supply base. But I want to go back to the global piece, because I think, again, depending on, you guys know your market better than I do, but, depending on the particular market that you play in, if you have an opportunity to expand into a global footprint, i.e., having boots on the ground in other countries, or having, relationships in other countries with companies that, again, provide similar services, I would encourage you to do that, and to actively seek out those opportunities. And that's what I was saying earlier. I think for small businesses in particular, when you think about how can I expand my network, it really is, I think, connecting with other companies that are in your wheelhouse, and you can do that, outside of the country. And we do have a number of diverse suppliers who have forged those relationships today, but in our current network. But certainly, again, there's space for, and like I said, I think predominantly, I think our supply base is probably filled with a lot of companies that are regional and local today. It's a good question, and it shows me that there's the people are understanding the marketplace, because it is a catch-22 for us in some cases as J&J, right? Because at the same time, we do absolutely have initiatives around, reducing the number of suppliers, that we have in supply base, reducing the tail and so forth. So we do have to balance, those objectives at J&J. So I think you guys, with the capability and innovation you bring to the table, can help us with, again, kind of creating those networks in places that make sense.
That's a great answer. Thank you for that. I'll switch it over to Aurelio to get some supplier perspective. We have a question here. With 15 minutes and with being more used to events where you only get maybe 5 if you're lucky, would it be overkill to do an 8 to 10 minute presentation so that the buyer understands more fully what the supplier does before they get into a Q&A? That would be this person's preference, but would love to understand if that's a no-no or how you approach that.
I think that that's a great question, because I don't think there's a right or wrong. I really think that it depends on the industry that you're in, the type of product or service that you're selling, how familiar they may or may not be with that type of service, right? If it's something that people know quite a bit about, then what I would do is focus on differentiators or what makes you different, or maybe some case studies or showcasing a couple of the pieces. But if it's an industry that's not well known, that people don't know about, then you might want to spend some time on education, right? Like, this is what we do, and this is why it's important, and this is how it will benefit the organization. Always tie it to what can we do for you, like what value we can bring to you. So if you're going to do a presentation and it's a data dump, that probably won't be helpful. Every time you provide some kind of information, always tie it to, this is how we've seen it benefit an organization like J&J or whoever they are. So I really do think that it depends. Really look at your presentation. Maybe do it with somebody else and get a fresh look at what you're presenting, because we get very used to our presentation and comfortable with it. And so we may not want to change it, but with 15 minutes, you really just got to highlight some important points. And again, they may not be the category lead. They probably aren't the category lead. So you just need to give them the key pieces, try to let them know that you can work with the organization, that you're capable of working with them. And then, are they willing to move you along to the category lead? That's kind of the goal for your 15-minute meeting. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and I'll build off of that. Is, if I'm not that category lead, if you are very clear of what your value is, I'm going to end up moving you along to that category lead. And so even if it's very marginal, for example, a lot of times, a lot of the work that you do isn't necessarily differentiating, okay? So you have to say, I'm able to improve the lead times from 4 weeks down to 2 weeks. I'm able to do this because I'm more nimble because of a smaller organization. I'm able to do that. So even it could be very marginal in your eyes, maybe significant enough for us when we're trying to evaluate supplier, whether to move them forward. So don't get discouraged because you go, well, I don't really have a unique difference from most of the public relations companies if I'm in public relations. And that's where you have to say, what are those factors or variables that make me a little bit different the way I'm structured?
Awesome, thank you for that. For the sake of time, because we're running low on time, I'm going to do my best to continue answering questions on the little format. But Alicia, I'll hand it back to you. And please, everybody here, that you have these questions and they didn't get answered, please, matchmakers@nglcc.org, and we will make sure that you get those answers. Thank you.
No, thank you, TJ. And hopefully maybe at the end, we'll be able to answer some more. But moving forward with, first, again, I would like to thank our panelists. Charlene, Paul, and Aurelio, thank you again so much for taking the time to talk about MatchMakers and the best practices for our suppliers, as well as other corporate partners that are here. So I just want to say thank you for that. And if you're able to stay on, please do, as we might have some more questions at the end. But moving on to the next part of our program, which our next screen is going to be the program overview. For you right quick. Oh no, you're okay. So as you can see, the program overview, our matchmaker session from supplier to buyer is going to be actually on October 1st, and it's from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Now, we're not saying that you have to be online all the way from 10 to 5. There's going to be certain times that our corporate partners are available and you are available. You just pick the times that you are available. The logistics is that they're 15-minute sessions with a 5-minute transition. So TJ, as well as us, will send you information regarding the matchups and the times that are available. And the schedule is that we're going to request and approve. That's going to be what My Business Matches is going to do and then assist us with, and then finalize the schedule, and then we'll send you confirmation on your actual schedule. TJ, do you have anything to add to that?
As I just said in the chat, make sure that you schedule yourselves breaks, and this goes to all of our partners and buyers as well. It is a long day, and making sure that you provide yourself a little bit of time, even though it's online, I think that's a little more taxing. So make sure that you take a break, and always make sure that check your schedule 24 hours in advance to make sure there was no changes. And those are my first tips right off the bat.
No, great. So, so what we're going to do now is we're going to turn it over to our My Business Matches, the program coordinators. That'll be Jeff and Kata. If you would like to take it over from here, the next screen is actually going to be what your profile is going to look like. And then Jeff will take over the screen and just show you the logistics and the tutorials of how to go through the portal.
Okay, fantastic. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me today. I'm Jeff. I'm a project coordinator, one of the project coordinators here at My Business Matches, helping out with these virtual matchmaker. And we also have Catalina, another project coordinator here with My Business Matches that's also helping out with this event in particular. So we're working in conjunction with TJ, making sure that you are prepped and ready to go for this virtual matchmaker. It's a new format that we're doing everything in. Given the times, but the same flow is going to apply. You're going to be able to create your profiles, log in, and schedule your meetings, and meet virtually one-on-one with opportunities that matter to you. So I'm going to give a quick demonstration. Me and Kata are going to give a quick demonstration of the system, make sure that you're set up more on the technical aspect, and then we'll open up for questions there. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen now. All right. Kata, can I get a quick verbal that you can see my screen?
Yes, perfect.
Awesome. So if you do not know, let me go over just a few points of what we're going to be covering today. We're going to be talking about just the home page and the registration at a very high level since we're kind of short in time, but mostly I want to put emphasis on building a strong profile. This is going to be very important for the matching aspect of the system and making yourself more visible to the buyers out there. So we'll go over that really quickly. What happens after completion of registration, then navigating the user dashboard, requesting meetings, and how to really prepare for the virtual meeting, making sure that your hardware is good to go and all that stuff, because we don't want any technical difficulties when we're right before we jump into that virtual matchmaking room. And then we'll do a quick demonstration of the virtual room itself and leave it open for Q&A after that. So if you aren't registered yet, the primary place where you're going to go is nglccpremier.mbmapp.com. This is going to be the matchmaking portal itself. So just keep in mind, matchmaking requires its own registration, and there's a purpose for that because you're setting up individual company profiles for the specific purpose of matching up. So nglccpremier.mbmapp.com, and utilize this front page as a kind of a starting point to go ahead and start testing your hardware. We do give some information regarding the platform itself, so what it's primarily works best with. So it works on all modern devices. It is a cloud-based system. So most of your major web browsers is going to be compatible with, but we do make some suggestions. Safari, Google Chrome, Firefox, Internet Edge is preferred. And also keep in mind that this does not require any download whatsoever to utilize. So you can even use it on your web browser on your iOS or Android device. So it's always important just to make sure that you're set up prior to even going into the matchmaker. You can even test out your hardware as well. So keep that in mind. You can do a quick hair check, make sure your hardware, your webcam, and your audio is working correctly before you even start registration. So next point I want to kind of go into is the registration, and I'll keep this kind of brief. Now with this registration, there is an importance into making sure that you're set up correctly, because this is going to actually create your company profile. Your company profile is going to make sure that you're visible to the buyers in the system. So there's a few different points of matching. You're not just going to be restricted off of these points, but it's going to give you the most viable options out there. So also to note, the email that you are selecting to create the company profile is going to be the primary login. We get a lot of questions with this. So you're going to log in with the primary email that you utilize here. Now, if you do want to invite other colleagues to the MatchMaker meeting, you can do that. We will be sending out magic links that you can distribute to your colleagues, or meeting links as well, 10 minutes prior to each meeting that you can share with your colleagues so they can join you in the matchmaking meeting itself. So keep that in mind, but the primary email is the one you're going to log in with. The system is going to be matching you directly by selecting the role, whether you're a corporate buyer or LGBTBE supplier. Once you select that role, you're going to be matched up with the other corresponding roles. So keep that in mind. It's already doing work just from the get-go. Enter a quick security question and then continue on with the registration. It's going to ask some basic questions about your company, about you, the attendee itself, cell phone information, etc. Please keep in mind, we are not sharing any of that personal identification information inside the system. It is just mainly utilized for the system to communicate with you. So enter the cell phone that you're most connected with, the email that you're most connected with, so you do receive those updates and communication regularly. So I'm gonna go ahead and skip on to the most important part, and that's going to be the NAICS codes or business categories. So this system is matching off of NAICS codes directly. However, you won't be designated to just utilizing NAICS codes inside the system itself. If you do not know your NAICS codes, you can enter keywords here, but the primary NAICS codes are going to pull up directly here and add as many that pertain to your company. So if for example, our company deals with computer programming. So I would select all the NAICS codes that fall under computer programming. So custom computer programming, custom systems designs, facilities magic, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to add all these. However, just because that's the primary NAICS codes or services that my company does provide isn't the only thing that we do. We also do deal with marketing, advertisements, et cetera. So again, utilize all the tools that your organization have under its bag to give you the most visibility to all the different buyers out there. So I'm gonna go ahead and add these. And the role is already gonna be selected to you. You're selling these products and the buyers are gonna be selecting the products that they're looking to procure. So for example, if I select 541519 computer services, I'm going to match up directly with any buyer that selects the same NAICS codes that they're looking to procure. So it works on a one-on-one. I choose one thing, the other user chooses another thing. Catalina, anything you want to add to matching?
Yes, imagine like it is a dating app. You want to register yourself and match with another person that likes the same that you like. For instance, I don't know, going out or apples. So you will see your matches there and you will be able to request meetings depending on, in this case, your business categories.
Exactly. And I just want to say, what has been requested in the past that maybe NAICS codes is a little restricted. This is just one point of matching that the system does. The other information that you enter on your profile is also going to add to that matching as well. So for example, you will have the ability to upload a brochure, capability statement, enter a description about your company, and all that information can be indexed into a search algorithm from the buyer's side directly. So for example, if you have a keyword of construction services in your business description, if the buyer enters construction in the keyword index, they'll actually see you there. So again, the only major point I really want to drive forward with the registration process is to just fill it out as much as possible, because it's going to give you the most visibility with those actual buyers directly. So once you're done with the registration process, you'll submit your registration, and then automatically the system is going to give you a confirmation email. Inside that confirmation email, we'll have the next steps. Some of the steps are going to be how to log in, Here's your login link and login credentials. We are even attaching a little PDF tutorial covering all the things that I'm talking about today. So we really want to make sure that you're prepared for it. But moving on, the next portion is actually going to be logging in. And once you're logged into your profile, you're going to see something pretty similar to this. Not quite the same platform, but really similar. It's going to have all the same components, just a little bit different on the colorings on the actual platform. Now, your user dashboard is going to be your primary tool for communicating between your counterparts or the buyers inside the system. You can always go back and edit your information. And I want to make sure that's very clear for you. If you click on your name on the top right-hand corner, first of all, the system is going to ask you what time zone you're in. Since we're all working in many different places, it will adjust accordingly to your time zone so you see the correct times that correspond to your actual time zone. So for example, I'm on the East Coast, so it's pinging me under Eastern Standard Time. You'll be able to view your profile on how other users view you. You can edit any profile information. So again, everything that you did in the registration can be changed later as well. I'll make sure that all the files are uploaded. If you don't have your capability statement handy during the registration process, you can always come back and update it here later. So all that is going to be viable for you within the platform directly as soon as you log in. And this is the same for the buyer side. So they'll have the same view. They'll be able to do the same thing. But most importantly, we want to see how we match now. Now, there's a few different places where you can actually check your matches. You'll have My Matches located here, My Matches located here. And like I said, you will have access to multiple different levels of matching. You will actually be able to view the directory, the buyers inside the directory that you don't directly match up with, but maybe you have some potential to work with them, and you'll be able to request meetings from the directory as well. But we're going to take a look at our direct matches. So I'm going to click on View Matches. And now the system's automatically going to ping all the information that I have inputted into the registration form, and it's going to start generating my matches for me directly. I will say that we do give a little bit more filters on the buying side, so that's why I stress the importance of you building a really strong profile inside the platform to make yourself more visible to the buying organization. So from here, you will have the filters on the left-hand side. You can utilize it to kind of narrow down your matches just a little bit more. So you have a keyword search here. You can search by opportunities or business categories. So if you want to look for a direct business category that you input in the system, you can see which ones actually have that. You can save users, add them for favorites. If there's any additional filters, it will show up here on the left-hand side. Your matches are going to show up on the right-hand side. Please note, if you do work better off of Excel spreadsheets, you can download the exported results all right here. It only limits you to 100 a page, so keep that in mind. But you will be able to download some basic information. Now let's take a look at the profile and glance over here. From here, you can see the registration type, the company name, and I just want to emphasize again, we do not share any personal identification information, just the public information that's input into the system. If you have met with someone in the past, you can add them to your favorites. The top NAICS codes, it's just going to show the top NAICS codes that they add in order. It doesn't designate that these are the most important NAICS codes. It's just information that we're displaying at a glance. Because if you click on View Profile here, you will be able to see additional information on these users if it loads up. There you go. So additional information could be like the full scale amount of NAICS codes that they added. If they did upload a brochure or a logo or a website, all that information is going to be located here. So you can download that brochure, you can click on that website URL, and you can most importantly see the products that they're either looking to buy or they're presenting for you. So it's always important to click on their full profile instead of just looking at a glance. And this is going to give you some information to make sure that you're prepped and ready for your actual one-on-one matchmaker. In addition, we do have an internal chat system. We have this internal chat system again, so no one's calling each other directly, but they're communicating through the matchmaking portal directly. So if you do want to maybe share some additional information with the buyer or the vendor, you can chat with them through the Let's Connect system right here. So I click on Connected, it's going to pull up a chat system. Works just like iMessages, very easy. Enter a chat, click enter, and then chat is sent. Most importantly, this particular section is where you're actually going to be requesting your meetings. Now, the way the request meetings work is that both parties need to confirm the actual meeting for it to show up on your schedule. And this is an important detail. Once I send the request out there, the other user will receive that request. So let's say I'm a vendor. I find a buyer I'm interested. Let's say it's J&J. I click on request meeting. All the meetings that we have in common will pull up in the system. So I can't double book myself, or they can't be double booked. It's only going to show the meetings that we have in common with each other. So I select the time that I'm interested in, and you can select multiple times on the NGLCC platform. So if you want to give them suggestions of up to 3 times, you can do that. Once the time has been selected, you send the request. Immediately that request goes to the corresponding party, where they can either accept or decline that request. So again, just want to emphasize that meetings only show up on your schedule once it has been confirmed by the other party. So that's the My Matches section at a glance, essentially. So really get to know this particular part. Do your research here. But again, you want to make sure that you're well prepared before you even send that request meeting. So that's why we give you as much information as possible under the My Matches section. All right, so really quickly want to move on to the next section, and that's just to make sure that you're, one last thing. I want to emphasize again, you're not just designated to your direct matches. You will have access to the full range of buyers under the directory system. The reason why we're doing that is, let's say a buyer added, only 2 business categories, but they may have an opportunity in a 4th or 5th category that they just didn't add. And you may have had a discussion with them at a previous matchmaker, so we want to give you access to them under the directory where you can request a meeting there or reach out to them directly there. But making sure that you're prepped for the matchmaker, I want to put emphasis on the notification center here. You will have the ability to turn on different notifications and receive various types of notification. And Catalina, do you want to touch base on the notifications really quickly?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Jeff. Keep in mind that you will receive notifications in every meeting request. If someone sends you a Let's Connect message, or also it is important if you can check your spam box for the email confirmation or for every notification that you will receive. Also, you will receive a notification before 10 minutes prior to the beginning of each meeting, which is great because you can be updated on what's going on and what's going next as well.
100%. And inside that notification 10 minutes prior to your meeting, we'll have the meeting link. So what we're trying to say to you is that we really don't want you to miss your meeting, and we're giving you every opportunity to jump on that. But you do have full control of your notifications. We send 3 types of notification in the system. You can opt in to text messages, email notifications, you can opt in or out, and internal notifications inside the system directly. So you do that by the notification center located in the system. Finally, last thing I want to leave you with prior to Q&A is where your actual meetings are located. So once you have done your due diligence, you did your research, you requested your meetings, and they've been accepted, everything's going golden, you will find everything, all your meetings under My Schedule. Clicking on My Schedule on the top right-hand corner, my meetings are going to generate in order of my actual meeting times. You'll be able to see the participant that you're meeting with, etc. Another important note is you can actually add these to your calendar now, and this is a new requested version for this particular platform. You can add it to Google, Apple, Outlook, or Yahoo, and again, it will have the meeting link there, so you can distribute that among colleagues as well. Once the meeting room is open, you'll click on Join Meeting, and I'm actually going to switch to a demo here. And then you will jump into the virtual meeting room. And I'm going to mute myself really quickly. Mute. Should see, there's Catalina. Okay, so we're trying to recreate the experience of a one-on-one meeting. So when you jump in, you're gonna show up on the bottom left-hand corner. Your counterpart or the person that you're meeting is gonna be in the big gray area behind you. And your other colleagues will show up. So the system is going to adjust for the size of the meeting, so keep that in mind. So if you do have another colleague that's gonna join you, they're gonna show up on either the left or the right-hand side of the person that you're meeting with. Inside the virtual meeting room itself, you will have the option to share your screen. So if you do have a presentation or a capability statement that you would like to share, you will be able to do that. On top of that, if you are having any issues, you can click on Report an Issue. That would get pinged to me and Catalina, and we'll jump in there with a quickness to help you out and troubleshoot those issues. On top of that, last thing is we will be putting call-in lines inside each meeting room. So you'll have your own individual call-in line with access code just in case you're having any audio issues or connectivity issues. Some issues that we have seen in the past, wrong web browser for one. If you're on like an old web browser like Internet Explorer, sometimes it doesn't work. If you're connected to a VPN, sometimes the firewalls won't let you go through. So just make sure that you test everything prior to even jumping in. And you can contact us if you have any of those questions, and we can make sure that they're troubleshooted right away. But that's all I really have for right now. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and leave it open for questions.
Awesome. I'll take that over then. Thank you so much, Jeff and Kata. That was really great. I think one of the biggest questions that's happening right now is I don't see the meeting request button. So that said, I almost went and did it, but if you wouldn't mind go ahead and going to the system to open up scheduling, we were very determined to make sure that even if you were a first-time attendee to MatchMakers for an NGLCC program, we wanted everybody to have equal opportunity. So now that everybody here is fully up to date on how things run, we will go ahead and open that scheduling so you can start requesting that. Please keep in mind that we will keep scheduling open until Tuesday, end of day, in which we will start finalizing schedules. Should you be running into any issues, please reach out to us. Again, matchmakers@nglcc.org with any questions. Okay, I'm going to try to get to some of these questions. Can you share slides in the meeting?
Yes, 100%. So there will be a share screen capability inside the meeting room. It works just like any other video conferencing application. Click on share screen, and then you choose the application you want to share.
Okay, thank you. If I've uploaded my capability statement, will the person I'm meeting with be able to access it?
Yes, 100%. So when they view your profile, when they're doing the vetting period, all your information is going to show up there, including the capability statement, brochure, logo, etc., and they will be able to download it.
Okay, great. Give me just a second. Sorry. If there's gonna be, what is the share screen gonna look like? Did you show that? I was fielding questions.
I unfortunately did not show that because I was already sharing my screen. So one thing I can do is provide on the tutorial document when we send out the reminders for the scheduling open, is it'll have a screenshot of this, the share screen capability. So be on the lookout on that in your email.
Okay, great. All right, I think that's all we have right now for you. So I'll continue to answer some of these questions. I know we've gone over time, but thank you so much, Jeff and Kata, for your questions. We will continue to answer them through matchmakers@nglcc.org. I want to hand it back to the moderators to make sure if we have time to address some other questions. I'll leave that decision to you.
It's up to our presenters. Whatever questions, if they're able to answer them, we could try to get maybe one or two more. but then, you know, we all have to be knowing that everybody's time is valuable. So maybe we can get 2 more questions and then we can close it out. I will turn it back over to Sabrina after these last 2 questions.
All right. Then I'll throw this one out for J&J because I think this is a really great question. Any advice for suppliers that provide unique services that a company like J&J would not normally go looking for on their own, but that could save J&J lots of money in the form of expense reduction?
Well, I think it depends on what you're actually proposing. So you can use me as kind of that initial person, and typically I triage a lot of work through vendors. So if you do have some unique proposal, I can figure out exactly what you're trying to propose and identify the category lead that actually works on that. Typically what I would do is speak to them first, give them an opportunity to say yay or nay and provide you that feedback, because that's probably one of the things that I think Aurelio talked about before is we're very inundated, obviously, from day to day with our normal business. So again, we want to investigate other opportunities, but use me as kind of that contact through Johnson & Johnson if you have that unique situation.
That is a great answer. And being the person that exists in between both buyers and suppliers, one tip of the trade that I've seen every year that really solid suppliers mention is that whenever you come into these events, one of the coolest things you can do is solve a problem for the buyer. Come to the table with the answer that they didn't even know they had. And that is often what the buyer wants to see is that you already have the answer, the scaling, and the ability to do that. That said, Paul, since I have you, actually, Aurelia was talking about the importance of follow-up and continuing. You know, this is just 15 minutes. This is not the guaranteed contract winning opportunity. This is the beginning of a relationship that will go on for an indefinite amount of time. Do you have any recommendations on best practices for follow-up?
I think Aurelia said it, nailed it in the head, is ask the question.
Oh, Paul, I think we broke up just in the middle of a perfect answer too.
You lead the opportunity to tell you how frequently they want to be contacted. But on a general basis, I would probably say on a quarterly or every 3 months, it's probably good to send a reminder email to say, hey, just finding out if anything's happening. So I'd probably say 3 months is a fair, and I've actually worked with veteran-owned businesses who have never gotten any J&J business, and he, for the last 2 years, sends me newsletters and things to keep me in mind. So this way, in case that opportunity does happen within that category, I can at least say, oh yeah, I know this company.
Mm-hmm. That is a great answer. And I think one of the best rules of the game is it is a long game at that.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay. I'll do one more if that's okay with everybody. Let's see. Really, this might be for you and for J&J. If a buyer's specialty is not my category, should I still try to meet with them if they are the store I'm interested in? So basically, if it's not technically a match, should they still try to request the meeting if they think there's an in?
I think the answer to the question is yes. You try to meet with them, and then that's your opportunity to identify if there's a potential, future opportunity within the organization. If the buyer doesn't accept the meeting, then they just don't accept the meeting. But it doesn't hurt to try. You don't know what they're looking for, and many times the computer system, algorithms don't perfectly match us, and so that there may be an opportunity there.
Awesome. Okay, I think I'll start wrapping that up for the sake of time. But thank you all for answering those questions. I'll hand it back. I'll say it one more time, matchmakers@nglcc.org if you have any questions at all. And thank you all to all the panelists who participated. And thank you, My Business Matches, for everything you do on the tech side. And moderators, take it back. Alicia?
Yes, no, thank you so much for that, TJ. And thank you, everyone who participated and was able to join in on this call. Just a little bit, a couple of reminders. Just remember to do the research and speak confidently. Don't ask them what they need, just propose a solution to problems that you may know that you have, that they have. And just understand the value of tier 2 collaborations and connections. And remember that this is the first step to a long-term relationship. And definitely create a capabilities one pager. That's the thing that you need. So just remember those tips. And again, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact us. And I'd like to also thank our presenting sponsors, Johnson & Johnson, again, for presenting for hosting and partnering with us on this great event. And now I'm going to turn it back over to the Senior Vice President, Sabrina Kent.
Thank you, Alicia. Thank you, everybody. Thanks to all of our presenters for the amazing feedback and insights that you shared today. Thank you to each and every one of you who participated on Zoom and Facebook Live. We love coming to you every Wednesday, 2 to 3 p.m. for NGLCC Webinar Wednesdays to learn from the best of the best in the NGLCC network. So get ready for October 1st, our Matchmakers program presented in partnership with PepsiCo. Thank you again to Johnson & Johnson and the NGLCC Communities of Color Initiative for today's amazing program, and to each and every one of you for all of your questions that you shared. We will see you back for Webinar Wednesdays programs every Wednesday, 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time. You can check out our entire repository of recordings at nglcc.org/webinars. This will be live there as well following this program. And any questions, you can email us at webinars@nglcc.org. And as it relates to Matchmakers, email us at matchmakers@nglcc.org. So thank you so much, everybody. Have a great afternoon, and we'll see you back next time.